he's got to say. Go ahead, Rich.
All right, we're going to start with the good, then transfer to the bad, then the ugly here. Here's 2 weeks ago as far as snow cover on January 31st. Obviously, there wasn't too much to speak of here for the plains. After that good system we did have come through, much of this southern Corn Belt as well as eastern portion of the plains had some very good coverage. With the warm temps we got this weekend, this is actually a picture taken as of this morning, February 14th. No snow cover at all for Nebraska on south, nothing for the southern Corn Belt as well. I'm going to back this up here. So here's last week on Monday, and here's today's. So certainly quite a change as far as that goes. And our weather guys, for instance, Drew made very clear references to the fact that he still thinks we're not out of the cold period yet. So even though we have warm temperatures right now, he's still saying he still has some concern for this wheat crop, which is now uncovered with no snow protection here from cold temperatures. So that's one positive thing. Here's a little map of China as far as wheat areas. Even though this is kind of a secondary story right now, something which we thought would be interesting to point out. As far as the main areas with drought, we've got this kind of highlighted here. Key things I kind of thought were interesting here. One news story from a Chinese forecaster said, you know what, a 50-millimeter rain is needed to overcome this deficit. And a little quick search of 50 millimeters says 2 inches. It's really not that bad here. Also keep in mind, as far as wheat, as we all know, the key measure for wheat for yield is going to come in spring rains, not necessarily right now here. So I'm not trying to discount their massive drought here, but want to point out that little fact. Last little thing, which is important for us to keep in mind, most of China's crop is irrigated. Let's kind of watch this next chart as far as yields that was sent out to you guys here through email. It wasn't just last year or the year before we had a massive drought where China was sending government workers to do all kinds of measures to protect themselves from the massive drought. Well, as far as yield goes, here's China's wheat yield. Because it is irrigated, they're looking at 70 bushel per acre yields. And really, you haven't had any change in yields in the past 3 years, even with their quote-unquote massive drought from a year or two ago. So I just want to keep in mind that we would love to play this bullish story, and you do have to play it for right now on the China wheat issue here, but keep in mind it probably doesn't mean a whole lot in the big picture once harvest comes around. So just keeping that in mind here. Now it's going to transfer over to the other exciting thing here as far as today. Now we're transferring to the bad portion of my little speech here. China's baseline projections. Here's the front page of their big report, and kind of highlighted one little section right here. And the numbers aren't, or the letters aren't too big for us to read, but the bottom line, it says, let's find this here. Okay, these are prepared during October through December, so these are a few months old. And the last numbers, the starting point of this report is the November WASD report, the November supply demand report. Now, as I kind of look at USDA's numbers, let's kind of keep this little section in mind here. As far as corn, they added 3.8 to corn, added 3.4 million acres to wheat. Couldn't get this one to line up too well here. And as far as soybeans, not too much of a change. I can't really argue with their numbers too much at all. Our numbers are more or less actually kind of similar to them. They're a little higher than us as far as the corn and wheat. But as far as the numbers, the planting numbers, can't argue with those too much at all. Keep in mind these are made about 3 months ago, back when prices were quite a bit cheaper. As we go through their balance sheet, I don't like to put a whole lot of numbers on on these type of slides here, but let's just look at these bottom ones right here. They have old crop at 827 and new crop jumping to 1.1 billion bushel. Now, one thing I mentioned earlier was these October through December projections, and they had to use the November report. This is the ending stocks for old crop back in November. And I had to point this out to 2 different reporters today that these are old numbers. So from a reporter standpoint, he's saying USDA thinks new crop ending stocks will be 1.1 billion bushels. That essentially says that we're out of the woods. Yeah, it's kind of tight, but a lot better than right now. In fact, we're at 675 right now, right? So we're doing a heck of a lot better. So even people who should have some knowledge of this industry have some trouble with this right now. Now it's going to correct these numbers. If you take a look at where old crop stocks are right now, 675, and you take that and you plug this into the beginning stocks right here, this gives you a 975. So it is still a jump. So USDA is still saying we're going to be okay a little bit. We're going to get out of some of this woods, but we're going to fine. We're not as great, not as rosy as what it looks like here. Allendale, we look for a slight increase to 837 for our new crop numbers right now. Same story with the soybeans. They have new crop soybeans here at 190. That's not too bad. We're doing great, right? We're at 140 right now, so it's an increase. Well, once you do the same thing, we're currently at 140 right now for old crop. That's actually we're at 145. So USDA soybean numbers really are not that bearish. We're still going to be at tight supplies more or less. And we kind of differ though. We do think we've got a little higher number as far as new crop here. As far as the wheat, 848 is what they have for old crop. This is made from back in November. And once you correct that, 818 is what we have right now. And they do look for a drop, 688. So their wheat number says a little drop. And our wheat number says a drop to the sixes as well. So as far as the net numbers, if you dig into them and it kind of corrects some of the changes, they're not as bearish as they initially would look as far as their numbers. But let's kind of put together a kind of key thing, a summary of what we need to watch for next few weeks. And these are more important. This next one right here, Agriculture Forum. USDA has an Outlook conference that they do each year. It's going to be on the, in this case, about a week and a half or so. They do it just like Allendale does. They pull supply-demand outlooks. And in fact, they have a USDA guy give an outlook, and then they have someone from the private industry give their own outlook here. So I would rather say that this is going to be the true measure of their true feelings for 2011 rather than these baseline numbers here. And here we've got Allendale survey. This is going to start the last week of this month. This is going to be exciting. We got the survey results coming out a full, a week and a half or so in front of USDA's report. So keep in mind that's coming out as well. These are going to be some big market movers, and this will help answer our question of, are we actually going to get these corn acres planted? That's going to be the biggest thing that I think we've got to pay attention to, and that's why this report is going to be, this survey is going to be so important for us. While USDA has a big 3.8 million acre increase plugged in for corn, Paul's meetings, he just said, you know what, half the guys aren't even planting that much corn. What is it, 40% we're going to be more to beans?
Right, 40% raised their hand, said we're going to plant more soybeans. 10% only said that they were going to plant more corn, which is a far cry from the numbers that USDA and what we're expecting and what we need to meet that balance sheet. So it'll be an interesting month here. And another big question that I asked is, well, at what price will you change? And they looked at me like I'm asking a really stupid question, because they looked at me like they weren't going to change. The reason they're planting more soybeans is because it's cheaper, less cost per acre to put the soybeans in the ground, and the consistency of the soybean crop is much better than the corn. So that was their reasoning why they were going to plant more beans. So we've got, I'll let you take it back over, Rich.
I think
Sorry for walking on you.
No, this is very important for all of us to hear. This is why this survey that's coming up is going to be such a big, big deal. And this is why it's so important for, certainly for the brokers and any of the producers listening, to help participate as much as possible on this report. We have so much riding on us getting those corn acres, which right now most producers, it seems, don't even have an intention on planting right now. That this is such a big deal to us right now. Yes.
I had a question, Rich, on the yield numbers. If you go back a couple slides for corn and soybeans, are these yield numbers that they're using up here, is that the USDA's estimate? So 162 bushel corn?
Yes. And what they'll do is they've, in fact, in the first reports that come out in May, as far as their first reports after the acreage report, they explain exactly how they use their numbers. They use a yield looking from 1990 to current. USDA, as I said here, 162. This is exactly what we computed using the same type of method.
Okay.
That's what's called trend yield.
Trend yield, yes.
And what was the bean?
And as far as the bean, I think we're at, here we are, 43.5, which is very close, maybe a little less than the last couple of years, but 43.5. I don't have any problem with all the other yield numbers.
Okay.
So very good point there. So we need the acres and we need the yield. As far as the kind of ugly part of what I wanted to speak on real quick here, for the soybean numbers, this report was kind of sucked in the back of people's minds here today, but this is important, the soybean crush, how many soybeans we use in the U.S. each month. USDA has a goal We know we're going to be less than last year. Year to date, yeah, it seems like that's great because we're not, we're ahead of USDA's pace. But we just want to point out December and February, or December, excuse me, January here. December and January were both 11% under last year. If this continues, we're going to not meet USDA's pace at all here. That certainly is not a fair